Welcome to the Lichen Sclerosus podcast. My name is Kathy, and this is our journal of learning about and living with lichen sclerosus. Each week, I usually research an aspect of lichen sclerosus and bring you the results and tell you how it's affected my life. But this week, we're going to continue the discussion I had with Dr. Sanaz Yaghmai from last week. If you haven't heard last week's episode, I highly suggest that you go and check it out. Dr. Sanaz was very, very open with us and shared her lichen sclerosus diagnosis story. It was deep and very heartfelt. This week, we're going to talk about how trauma affects our lichen sclerosus and how we can use her services as a trauma-informed coach to help manage our lichen sclerosus. And she even gave us a few tips on how to relax your body if you are experiencing pain with sex, so that way you can get in the mood and enjoy yourself. So without further ado, here's the rest of my conversation with Dr. Sanaz. You said after your biopsy, your symptoms got so much worse. What kind of symptoms came up after?
So after the biopsy, after the stitches finally healed after 4 to 5 months or so, then it just changed. My symptoms before were only pain during sex and tearing during sex. And then it was hormonally. So throughout the month, depending on where I was in my cycle, I would have intense burning and itching. And when I say intense, I mean like to the point where it would wake me up at night and I feel like there's like fire between my legs.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes I would get an ice pack and put an ice pack between my legs and fall asleep. And I'd wake up with my thighs being numb. And I really feel like the biopsy is what triggered it. I don't know what it was, what happened, but like the stitches or whatever exacerbated it. And so since then, it's just been that way.
Saying that, in my research, I have found that they do believe that there is a component that is trauma-induced. And I completely believe that because my symptoms started after I had a hysterectomy where they went in vaginally. And after my hysterectomy is when I started having symptoms.
See?
Before that, I've never had any symptoms.
Wow. Yep, exactly. And that's the other thing that I have been trying to find research into is sexual trauma. So just trauma in the reproductive region.
Yes.
So when you've had trauma in that region,
trauma to the vulva,
at any capacity, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be sex. It can be through a doctor, through surgery,
yes,
through some sort of a fall where you hurt yourself there. You know, when you have trauma to that area, I really believe that that's when symptoms just, you know, go to another level or even get activated. It starts off that way for some.
Yes.
That's where my area of interest is, the sexual trauma and lichen sclerosus. And I want to work specifically with women who have that. But yeah, going back to one thing I wanted to mention is once I started having these new symptoms, once it was getting more itchy, I would once in a while use the steroid cream. I just felt uncomfortable using steroid creams, but I'm becoming more comfortable with it. In this time, I was trying to find new gynecologists to see and just to see what their opinions are, because I'm always looking for a second opinion. You know, it's not really a second opinion, but it's like 100th opinion. And I noticed that every time I'd go to the doctors, whenever I'd sit on the examination table, as soon as they touch my thighs, you know, generally the ones that are more appropriate will start with a touch of a thigh and you kind of guide themselves through the process and telling you what they're going to do.
Yes. And
when their hands touch my body clenches up so much. And they can't. My muscles clench up so much that I can't let them in. Their fingers can't go in. Nothing can go inside. Through the process of experiencing that and entering the dating world after we got divorced, I realized that over time I've developed vaginismus. Because of the ongoing pain I would experience through having sex, my body started saying, no, I don't want anything to go inside of you. Right. So you're going to tense up and close and shut it off, you know, shut it down.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it's like. So I also developed vaginismus as a result of having lichen sclerosus and having lots of pain
Wow.
during sex. Also, I think the biopsy also made it worse too. Because having that biopsy, I had a really traumatic experience with a gynecologist. So from that point forward, going to other doctors was very scary for me. And so finding those two doctors in LA that really were compassionate and kind and, you know, just wonderful was very healing. But at the same time, I'm still experiencing vaginismus.
Right. Because your body is trying to protect you from the trauma.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's that muscle memory
Yep.
reflex.
Yeah. My body is really trying its best to protect me because it sees how many times I didn't listen to it and like chose to
Right.
continue having sex.
That's why it's so important that we do listen.
Yeah.
That we listen and we respect what it's trying to say
Yeah.
and not try to overpower it with our own thoughts and desires.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
And that's the thing though, like this is why I work with women because yes, so we have to listen to our body. And so if our body is telling us we cannot have sex at this moment, that is incredibly challenging with or without a partner, whether you're single or whether you're married. And so if we want to listen to our bodies and listen to the pain that we're experiencing, that means we have to find new ways to navigate our life, our sexual intimacy, our dating, our marriages, everything through a new lens where we're able to still thrive and not feel unworthy or not feel sexy or not feel beautiful and sexual, you know, and we have to find other ways to be sexual and intimate and reignite our sexuality again while knowing that we can't have sex. Not that we can't have sex, that we can't have sex in that moment, you know, like once the flare up goes away, we
Right.
can like have it again. Yeah. To find ways to listen to the body and also be compassionate with yourself is a really, really big struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you found ways to listen to your body? Is there any tips that you can share for anybody who's listening who might be struggling right now with that?
Yeah, I mean, my whole practice around mindfulness and yoga and deep breathing exercises has been very helpful for me personally. One of the things I do with my clients is we make a list of like different tools that we can implement that are comforting and bring us a sense of joy, love, just ignite those feelings of warmth and compassion for ourselves through different avenues.
Like what, for example?
Like, for example, guided meditations are very resourceful for me. Like, just imagining doing visualizations of me sitting by the beach, for example, and doing some deep breathing practices will really calm my mind and body in that moment, especially when I'm in the thick of it and feeling really uncomfortable in some way. That grounding practice will really bring you back into the present moment and allow you to step away from those feelings of shame. And like one of the things I try to work with my clients on is learning how to live with feelings of discomfort and pain and still having compassion for yourself. So these are all practices that I feel like it comes with a lot of like journaling exercises and any self-care activities that are meaningful and helpful for you, whether that's artwork or riding a bicycle or playing with your children, you know, whatever the case may be. When we can find ways to keep ourselves in a place of self-compassion and accessing joy while knowing that we are living with these chronic conditions. It's a fine balance, but it's a really important thing to work on and practice.
So let's say someone wants to be intimate that night. You recommend they take the time to meditate and try to get their body relaxed and open.
So in those situations, honestly, some people guided meditations will work for them. Other people, it'll be grounding exercises, such as just coming into a seated position, noticing your sensations, feeling your feet on the earth, taking a look around you and noticing the colors in your surroundings and just naming all the colors you see. So really heightening the senses. And for some people, it's also breathing exercises. Not everybody can find a place of calm through deep breathing, but it does work for some. And for me, it is one of those ways. And so coming to a place where you can either do the grounding or the deep breathing or maybe a guided meditation to calm the body, I think is the first step in relaxing the body. And then also, whoever you're going to be intimate with, I think that's another whole conversation in and of itself for probably another time. But your partner really needs to be in on this with you and aware 100% of what it is that you're going through. Because once you have that shared understanding, their patience and compassion paired with you, trying to instill a sense of calm in your body, they can heighten that. They can make you feel more calm and support you in your process, whether it's a gentle touch or, stroking your back or wherever, to heighten your feelings of calm. Because that feeling of touch increases the oxytocin in the body, and oxytocin actually does decrease pain. So when that gentle touch, it's a consensual, gentle, loving touch on your body, I really feel like that will support the body in lessening the pain and lessening any tension in that region, whether it's muscle tension or whatever. So those mindfulness and grounding practices really are important, along with the partner being 100% involved as well. Because it takes two people to create a pain-free sexual experience when it comes to living with lichen sclerosus.
Yeah, you have to have that trust.
Yeah, the trust, that compassion, the patience, that gentle touch, coming from the partner is crucial.
Wow. I thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I think it'll be helpful for someone who is struggling, who may feel that they want to be intimate with their partner, but they may feel like it's hopeless and they want to give up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. There's definitely more work that you can do. Reach out to Sanaz. Tell them where they can find you so they can work with you.
They can find me at my Instagram handle is Dr. Yaghmai. So it's Dr.Yaghmai. And my website is alchemyoftrauma.com.
I'll have all the links in the show notes, so you can just click on your podcatcher, and I will also have it on the website at lichensclerosuspodcast.com. So I have a question. What is the difference between a psychologist and a trauma-informed coach?
Oh, okay. So psychologists typically, at least in the United States, have a doctoral degree in psychology, and they work under the board licensed as a psychologist. And the work of a psychologist is really focused on just digging deep down into one's mental health history, like even going into like childhood development, history of trauma, upbringing, and then etc. It can be all things pertaining to one's past and present, delving really deep into the psyche and into interpersonal relationships and how these relationships and experiences have impacted your personality development, etc. However, coaching can be used as an adjunctive support for therapy. And so trauma-informed coaching is very focused on, at least for me and the way I do it, is very focused on the present. We don't go into the past. We don't even necessarily have to talk about any traumas or childhood history of anything. We focus on the present and how sensations are impacting your mind and body and how you perceive and respond to these sensations in your body, which ultimately determine how you react in the world. And so it uses a lens focused on how trauma impacts the body. And then I blend my work of yoga teaching into the coaching as well. And so there's a lot of mindfulness practices. There's a lot of self-inquiry. I try to encourage the client to do their own self-exploration. I don't necessarily lead with questioning. I always kind of take it back to the mind-body interplay and how everything is all connected, and just noticing, really trying to focus on heightening one's awareness of noticing how sensations impact their mind and body. And then we go into resilience building tools to kind of cope with and better address these sensations that arise, so we can kind of navigate life through a more compassionate and resilience-based lens versus that feeling of having that heavy energy weighing you down.
Cool. So it's kind of how to recognize the triggers and then give a new response to those.
Yeah, exactly. So you're trying to recognize those triggers, identify how you have been responding to those triggers, like try to take a step back and see how you've been responding, and then reshape your response to it. And over time, those become the new responses that you're implementing, those new tools over time will become your automatic responses. And that's why the mindfulness and yoga practices really help in kind of integrate those new responses into your body from a very holistic perspective.
So you have your new business called the Alchemy of Trauma. Tell us about it.
This is basically my trauma-informed coaching practice. Under the Alchemy of Trauma, I do the individual coaching, and that's basically resilience building and empowerment coaching with a focus on survivors of trauma, and it can be a trauma of any sort. Under that also falls the trauma-informed reproductive health. Under that umbrella, I'm focusing on one of the issues is working with women with lichen sclerosus, and then also any other sexual reproductive health issues that's tied into trauma as well. So it's just basically a different branch of my coaching. I'm also a doula, so I offer trauma-informed doula support.
Being that you do have lichen sclerosus and you're starting to coach women with lichen sclerosus more, do you feel like the fact that you also have lichen sclerosus kind of changes how you coach, that you have more of an intimate kind of knowledge, or is it basically the same?
I would honestly say it's different. It's definitely helps that I am living with it and I know exactly what it's like. So yeah, I would say it's definitely has far greater of an impact when the person who is coaching you also has the experience or is living with lichen sclerosus. Because I've been through it and I am living through it, it's very close to home and I understand the struggles on a very deep personal level. But that's not to say, obviously, that a coach or therapist who doesn't have it is not going to be beneficial. People always say that all the time. How can I be a therapist, for example, to somebody who is a mother, and if I don't have children of my own, that does that make me not a good therapist? But it's not about that, you know. A lot of times when it comes to therapy and coaching, we see the client as the expert in the room. We see them as the expert of their own body. So yes, I may have a professional expertise and, you know, educational expertise in the field that we're talking about, but the client, whoever they are and whatever their history, they are the expert of themselves, of their own body, of their own life. When we take that approach and we approach therapy and coaching through that lens, it really does have an impact because it's very human-centered and it's focused on their experiences. And so paired with the fact that I do have an experience of lichen sclerosus, I think I'm able to bring in a very compassionate lens, like a heightened compassionate lens.
Do you feel like helping these women, it turns around and kind of helps you kind of living with lichen sclerosus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just hearing other stories is always helpful, whether I'm in the client seat or the coach seat. When we hear stories of other people going through the same experiences we are, first of all, it destigmatizes a lot of the shame that we may be holding on to for having such conditions. It normalizes it for us. And it just naturally, when we know that there are other people out there sharing our experiences, it just will lighten the load just a tiny bit, maybe, but still just continuously hearing other people's stories will slowly lighten the load more and more. And we will hopefully hold on to feelings of shame less and less and slowly like begin to let go.
Yes, I feel that so deeply. And that's why I definitely wanted to have you on. And any one of our sisters who wants to share their story, they're more than welcome because it's 100% what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you coming and spending time with me today, just sharing your story, being vulnerable, using your voice. and I appreciate you so much. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for having me. I really, really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I think it's so valuable, the fact that you're doing this, your website, your platform, your podcast, all of it. I'm excited to see how this grows, and I'm definitely honored to be one of your guests.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we have so much more that is coming in the near future. I'm excited. I have projects in the works that is going to help the community. I think it's going to take us to a whole nother level, and it's going to start taking us down a road that's long been needed. And I'm just building on the foundation that those who came before me have laid. I just want to continue the progress that we've made. So I'm excited as well.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Thank you once again, Dr. Sanaz, for joining me. Thank you for listening this week. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with Dr. Sanaz, check the links in the show notes. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Lichen Sclerosus Podcast, and have an amazing week. And I will see you next time. Bye.